Welcome to JGTCR, I'm Cope, and today we are tuning the Chevrolet C3 Corvette Stingray. Let's get into it. This Corvette is quite maneuverable considering the era of the vehicle. It drives much better than expected in factory trim. The handling works well as long as we have traction. It responds to our inputs quite quickly with much gusto. The power is rather good, again considering its era. There is plenty of giddy up when we drop the hammer. The power delivery is good, but a touch too aggressive. The tail steps out easily if we are heavy-handed, but slides are very controllable. This gives a certain fun chuckability to this Stingray. The brakes are okay, but they do have a certain spongy feel to them. Let's collect our time. "8 minutes, 5.2 seconds. On to the race tune. The main issues we had to contend with when tuning this Corvette was oversteer and wheel spin. This is reflected in our natural frequency settings and the ballast of 100 kilos at a ballast positioning of 22 over the rear wheels. Let's head back out to the Nürburgring. When completely modified and tuned, this Corvette Stingray can seem like chaos to drive if we try too hard. We need to ensure we avoid driving like we are in a Fast and Furious movie to maintain control. If we slow down, don't overdrive the vehicle, take it easy, the time just falls away. The handling is good. However, the caveat is we must drive smoothly. Aggressive and sharp inputs will unsettle the car quickly, and it ain't pretty. When the tail end kicks out, it is not joking around. Consider yourself warned, as it will show you no mercy. The power is good, but the delivery of that power is too aggressive. We must use higher gears and keep to medium RPM through turns to avoid spinning out. Throttle modulation is a must when cornering, and we should only go flat out on dead straight road. The brakes do well to keep up with all of the modifications and stop us decently when applied. Let's collect our time. 6 minutes, 28.7 seconds. And now, the drift tune. For our drift tune, the only thing we have changed is the tires. On our first trial run, it linked the entire circuit flawlessly. Let's see it in action drifting Suzuka. The Corvette Stingray is a laid-back car to drive and drift. All we had to do was change the tires and it hit the track, happily linking the entire thing on our first go. It has an amazing ability to adapt and shows a seamless progression from race to drift. The handling is awesome. It is very easy to control while drifting. This Corvette moves confidently on circuit and is easily placed. It also does not fight back at all when making adjustments to our speed, line and angle while drifting. There is an abundance of power available underfoot. It has no issues simmering the tires or cooking them on high, depending on what we're after. The power delivery does seem aggressive at first. That is until we get used to how it comes on, and then it's clear sailing from there. The C3 Corvette is a natural drifter and quite easy to slide. And now it's time for an engine swap. With the engine swap, this Corvette is a skid machine. No part of this vehicle even wants to think about keeping traction. The best bet is to throw this car into fourth and drive it like it's an automatic. The only reason to come down the gears is to get more rotation while cornering. This C3 handles well enough to control slides, but apart from that, it's very hard to tell how it does when we do have grip. We do have quite a bit of power available to us, but it is the power delivery that is ludicrous. In any gear, the rear lights up like it's the 4th of July. There is much throttle modulation needed to keep this thing on the road. The slides are fun and generally manageable, but it's a fine line between a nice drift and flying off the track. The brakes do a stand-up job of slowing the car down. However, it is still a bit spongy and can get a touch wobbly. Let's collect our time. "7 minutes 53.9 seconds. And now the race tune. With the engine swap, the balance of this Corvette was thrown out. That is reflected in our tune setup. There was a greater degree of understeer to contend with, so we have focused slightly more on the front suspension being softer. In turn, we had to be a touch more aggressive with our ballast of 170 kilos at a ballast positioning of 20 over the rear wheels. This is to counter some of the accommodations we made for our front suspension. Let's hit the track. The C3 Corvette Stingray with the engine swap is a very sketchy feeling car. It is fast, but it is as twitchy as a junkie scratching for the next hit. High RPM is a no-no if cornering is concerned. This Corvette will snap our hands off, the bite is that strong. The handling is decent as long as we have traction. It turns well and shows sharp steering response to inputs. However, when it wheel spins, it is squirrely and has the potential to snap out in any direction. There is a huge amount of power available to us. Unfortunately, it struggles to get it down to the road effectively. The power delivery is ridiculous. Almost constant wheel spin that we have to manage extremely carefully or risk T-boning Bazzy Rizzy. The brakes work surprisingly well. It does a stellar job of slowing us down, but it does take a bit longer than expected to slow down, mainly because of the speed that we are carrying. Let's collect our time. "6 minutes 26.3 seconds. On to the drift tune. Our drift tune seems extreme, however, it is nothing out of the ordinary when dealing with a high-powered, engine-swapped vehicle. Once again, the ballast saves the day by taking the edge off the bite on the rear end. Let's drift Suzuka. The Chevrolet Corvette Stingray C3 is such a lovely chassis to drift, and with the engine swap it does take a bit of suspension work to get it to come together, but when it does so extremely well. The handling does feel a touch boaty McBoatface, but it is what we need to keep control of the front end while we drift. The steering is sharp and responds well to our inputs. We just have to ensure that we load up the front end correctly with our throttle input. Power is clearly not a problem, with a metric butt-ton available underfoot. Power delivery is something we must consider properly before we action anything. The engine may seem grumpy and lumpy, but it has a big kick and bite to it if we do not respect it. For simplicity's sake, it's best to keep at lower RPM and use throttle modulation. If we want to push harder, we will have to use more advanced drifting techniques. And that's all we have for you today, so until next time, keep racing!